property can actually boost your net worth and really does help to propel generational wealth.
Hi guys, welcome back to another finance discussion. My name is Lindy and this is Tando, and together we are Skilled Finances. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, we're so glad to have you here with us. For those of you that have been following us for a while, thank you for following us. We appreciate you, we appreciate your support, and we appreciate your love. If you're not already doing so, make sure you're following us on all our socials. That's at Skilled Finances. And for all the podcast lovers out there, we've got you. That's also at Skilled Finances on various podcast platforms.
Now, one of our favorite books is called The Richest Man in Babylon. And in that book, there are 7 money rules. And one of those rules is make thy dwelling an investment and own your home. Now, we are homeowners and we are also big believers in owning a home. And so today what we're going to be doing is sharing with you 7 reasons why we believe you should own your home and the benefits of being a homeowner. Let's get into it. The first reason is that the value of property goes up over time. Now, this is generally the case in a normal environment, in normal markets. Now, there are so many reasons why this happens and there are so many benefits of why this is a thing. But the one thing that I'll point to of the reason why this is a good thing is because that I think one of the times of people buying their forever home as their first home, generally speaking, of first-time buyers, our focus is buying usually based on what we can afford. And sometimes what we can afford is not the ideal property that we would like to live in. And so the strategy that some first-time buyers are using is actually, well, let me buy a flat or a smaller house right now because that's what I can afford. And then as the value of this property goes up, I can then leverage that equity or that money that is going to buy as my deposit for the next house. And obviously this is something that actually does work in many cases. And so this is one of the reasons why owning your home is then powerful, because it probably would take you much longer time to save up that kind of deposit that you would need to buy the bigger house that you would like. But in fact, you could cut that time short by buying a smaller house now and then leveraging the equity that house makes, the value that the house goes up by, as your deposit for the next house. So this is something that we did. We bought our house and we sold that property to buy another house. And when we did that, we did the calculations, did the numbers, and we realized that actually, it would have taken us years to save up the kind of money that we have actually made from selling this property. And so it is this strategy that we're talking about. And this is one of the benefits of being a homeowner, that you can then leverage property in that way that when the value goes up, you use that money to then upgrade and get a bigger property that you'd like.
Now, the second benefit is the fact that when you own your own home, you're building equity in the home rather than making payments to the landlord. The thing with renting is, yes, for some people, it's what's comfortable and it's what works for them. But when you're renting, the money that you pay your landlord, the rent, goes to them paying off their mortgage and building equity for them. But the way we look at it is, okay, so why don't we do that for ourselves? Why don't we then pay the mortgage down? But in essence, we are then building the equity in our home. And one of the other things that you actually can do is to make overpayments. So even if you've got a deal that says you pay a certain amount every single month on your mortgage, you can actually make overpayments. And the beauty of overpayments is that, one, it goes to paying off the mortgage and lowering the amount that you owe, but it also means that you could be paying off your mortgage a lot quicker than you thought you'd be paying it for.
That's right. So this is the reason why you find a lot of people have this sense that, if I'm paying rent, my money's just going down the drain. It's not really going to anything that's of benefit. Whereas at least if I'm paying the mortgage, I'm paying towards something that would still be mine, or something that will give me something in return, which paying down your mortgage means you're obviously building the equity in your property and building the amount that you own as part of ownership of that property. So talking about monthly payments, the third thing is that you know what your monthly payments will be for a long period of time. And this actually gives you a lot of stability. Now, I remember back in the day when we used to rent, every year our rent went up. Yeah. Every time the landlord would review our rental payments, they would increase it every time without a fail. That was like non-negotiable. We even expected it to happen. But when it comes to owning a house, especially if you get a fixed deal mortgage, you can get a fixed deal mortgage for 2 years or for 5 years, or some cases even 10 years. But what that essentially means is that your monthly payment stays the same for that period. So if you get a fixed deal for 5 years, that means you know exactly what your monthly payment will be for 5 year period. And it's not going to change in that 5 years. It's going to stay exactly where it is. This actually really helps in terms of bringing stability to your finances and knowing exactly what you're paying on a single monthly basis. Plus, it also helps when it comes to kind of planning ahead when your money and planning ahead in terms of like what you can afford and how much you can save or invest and all these other things, because you know that your mortgage payment is going to largely be exactly what it is based on the deal that you have. In comparison, yes, your rental payments will stay the same for that 12-month period, but just the fact that your rental payment change every single year, or it could change every single year, just kind of gives you that instability that you don't get when it comes to mortgages, where you can actually fix a longer term period and know exactly what your monthly payments will be in that period of time.
Now, the fourth benefit of owning your home is that you get to make it your own. Now, this is one thing that I remember we struggled with when we first started renting, because prior to that, we were living with our parents. And in our parents' homes, their home was our home, so it was fine. But then when we started living by ourselves, one of the first things, or one of the things that was put in bold on the contracts was, don't drill on walls, don't do this, don't do that, and don't do ABCD, right? And obviously, if you're moving into a place that you're now thinking, okay, this is our place, you want to do things to it, you want to put pictures on the wall, you want to decorate, you want to do this, that, and the other, and to then see a statement on your contract saying you can't do that is quite hard and is quite disheartening. So that's one of the benefits, because you get to make your house, you turn it into your home, you do anything that you want to without the restrictions of someone else saying to you, well, you may be living in the home, but it's not necessarily yours. It's not your home. And I guess that's one of the things that continue to remind us of the fact that actually, as much as we're in this place, it's not ours. We don't own it. And it was a constant reminder, because we would have loved to do so much to the place, but then we were just restricted and limited to what we could do.
And this even applies to pets. So you may have
Yeah.
pets, and you may find that it's hard to find landlords who would allow certain types of pets or certain numbers of pets. But if you own a home, obviously that restriction does not apply. The only restriction that applies to homeowners is if you want to change anything on the outside of the property. That's where you get things like planning permission. But generally speaking, inside the house, well, no one's going to bat an eyelid. You do whatever you want inside the home, because it is your house at the end of the day. The fifth thing is that nobody can kick you out of your home. Now, here's the situation, and it's a reality with renters, that the situation can change overnight or in a short space of time. You know, there's so many things that could happen. The landlord could not renew your contract, or they could sell the property on to somebody else who may not choose to renew your contract or choose to do something else with the property. And you find yourself in a position where now you need to look for another rental place, because the place that you were renting, you can no longer stay there after your tenancy agreement comes to an end. And these are all things that can happen in the rental market. But when it comes to home ownership, well, nobody can kick you out. I mean, obviously, if you don't pay for your mortgage, the banks could kick you out, but that's a whole different thing. What we are saying here is, as long as you're paying for your mortgage and that's really it, nobody will come and knock on your door to say, actually, we've changed our mind about you living here, we think you should move out. As a homeowner, you have that stability. Again, comes back to that word, that stability of knowing that, yes, this is my home and this will be my house, when you're mortgage free, for instance, and nobody will be able to knock on your door and say, get out. But that is a possibility if you're still a renter.
So the sixth benefit is that you could actually make passive income out of your home. Now, the way to do this is there's something called house hacking, where homeowners get to rent out certain parts of their houses. Now, if you've got a garage that you don't use, you could rent that out as storage to someone. If you've got bedrooms in your house that are not being used at all, you could actually rent them out and use that as a way to make extra income, or as a way to just make extra money that you can then use towards your bills or use towards something else. Now, there's a lot of people that do things like this, where they decide that actually our children have moved out of the home and we've got so much space. Why not rent it out? Why not make them extra money?
Yeah, to be honest, this will not apply to every single person, but some people will have that ability to do things like this. And some people actually go into this process or into the home ownership process with this in mind. They deliberately buy a place with the thought process of, I'm going to buy somewhere that will allow me to rent, or somewhere where there's space enough for me to then start renting out some of these rooms that I'm not using. And then again, the hack is that because you're living in the property, you would get a residential mortgage as normal. And then because you have extra rooms that you are not personally utilizing, you could then decide to rent those out and then use that rental income as another source of income. So again, this is not going to be something that every single homeowner can use, but it's worth mentioning because it is something that a lot of people do use to boost their income and to increase their net worth in one way, shape, or form. Talking about net worth, the seventh thing is that property can actually boost your net worth and really does help to propel generational wealth. Now, when you think about net worth, a net worth is a calculation of the assets that you own and taking out the value of the assets you own, subtracting the amount that you owe in form of debt. So what happens in that calculation? Well, the value of the properties that you do own classes or gets counted as the asset on the asset column. The total of the amounts of things that you own are included in the assets column. And property is an asset that gets counted in that, whether it's a residential property or rental property, that all gets counted in that because it's the value of that property that is part of your net worth calculation. And sure, we then subtract the mortgage balance from that, but there is some equity in that, and so that remainder forms part of your net worth. And there are a lot of people who are net worth millionaires, even billionaires, because of property. They own a lot of property that they put on their books and say, okay, the property value is this and property value is this, and this forms part of my net worth. And then on top of that, it then goes in towards generational wealth. Property is something that you can pass on to your family, to your kids, and to your future generation as something that preserves wealth within the family, or something that you can actually pass on to other people. Fair enough. Yes, there's other things to consider around that, but that is one of the things that is there and available for you to pass on to other people. You cannot pass on your rented place to other people, or you can't pass on your job and your salary to your family, but you can definitely pass on your property, your house, to your family and to your future generations. And so those are the 7 things, the 7 benefits and the 7 reasons why you should be a homeowner, and why we are big advocates and big believers in home ownership in general. Hopefully this has opened your eyes to some of the other benefits that are there in regards to owning a house. We know there's a lot of debate out there regarding whether you should own a home or not. Now, please don't take this as pressure to buy a house. If you want to buy a house, then again, these are the benefits that come with that. But don't buy a house just because we are saying this. You need to buy a house because it fits with your vision and your plan for your life and for your financial future. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you're watching this on YouTube, let us know in the comments which one of these benefits have you materialized, or which one of these benefits resonated with you the most. We'd love to hear from you in the comment section. If you're listening to this on the podcast, we'd love to have a review from you on Apple Podcasts to let us know the value that you are getting from our discussions. Okay, we thank you so much for joining us. Till next time, we'll see you soon.